everybody, welcome back. My name is Bill. If I haven't met you yet, I'm a certified financial planner with Financial Cornerstone Group. And so I just wanted to get this out of the way. Budgeting, it gets a bad rap. It sounds so restrictive. It's time consuming. It's ambiguous. It's flat out boring. So let's go ahead and get the boring definition out of the way. We'll talk about the pros and the cons of budgeting, really what it is, how it works, and how it can set you up for true financial success and be a strong, firm foundation to build upon. Let's get started. So a budget is a document or a plan that coordinates and allocates a person, a household, a charity, or a corporation's capital and their resources with their expenses. However, I view a budget as a plan to allocate our capital in a way that we pay ourselves first and according to our priorities and our values. So we set this plan up in a way that we give ourselves permission to spend our resources based on income and expenses. And what I've noticed over the years is, if it does nothing else, it sure as heck lessens the anxiety that we have when we don't have a plan and we don't know where our money is going. Because what I found is if you don't boss your money around, your money will boss you around. So it lessens that anxiety and it gives us a more focused on our goals. So let's look at a couple core components that are essential to having a good budget, and then we'll talk about different types and the pros and cons of the different types of budgets that are out there. So just to start, obviously, income. What is our household income from all sources, whether it's W-2, 1099, Social Security, pension income, royalties, rental income, whatever it may be. Expenses, a detailed accounting of all of our outflows, mortgage, rent, insurance, gas, food, entertainment, pet supplies, any tithing or charities that we might do. And second, we need to be very, very good at tracking these things. I personally use a really fantastic financial planning tool that analyzes and tracks spending on a very high level view, just to see trends on how we spend our money and any shortcomings or overspending. There's apps like Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar that's out there. There's a lot of free tools on the internet that can track any over or underspending to do. And tracking and holding yourself accountable is great. We need to be realistic. So a lot of times you'll hear folks say, break down your goals into needs, wants, and dreams. A need is a place to live. We don't necessarily need a new guitar or whatever it is. So, but we need to be realistic on that. And then finally, being flexible with the budget. I may be on the really stricter side and want to analyze it on a monthly basis, but that's just to be flexible and need to be able to change as life changes. So for example, we just had our first child, and obviously we have to update the budget. So not everything is going to be extreme like that, but it could be just little minor things that we want to make sure are reflecting good data in, good data out. So the first type of budget that I'm going to talk about is one that I use a lot with clients. It's called a zero-based budget. It's done with a spreadsheet or a financial planning tool or software where every single dollar is accounted for or bossed around or told where to go. The goal of this budget is to account for all income and all expenses as best as we can at the end of the month. So the goal is to list all income, list all of expenses, and then at the very end, that difference between those two figures should be zero. Because essentially what we're doing is we're saying, once I get a dollar in, this dollar has a job. And that job is to go towards rent or one of those items that we list on the budget. And it harkens back to, if you don't boss your money around, your money bosses you around. There are a few pros and cons. The pros are that it accounts for every dollar that we earn. It's easy to change. It's easy to reallocate funds. It's very transparent in the use of your money. The cons are it doesn't always work out that way in the real world. We may say, and actually it's very likely that we'll do a zero-based budget for a client, and at the end of the month, we may have a few $100s left over or a shortfall. So there needs to be tweaking that goes into that. The next type of budgeting system is a tough one. It's called the envelope method. If there's any Dave Ramsey fans out there, I'm sure that you've heard of that. As the name suggests, you have separate envelopes that are stuffed with cash, and that cash accounts for a budget that are allocated towards a specific expense. So once the money in that envelope is gone, you're essentially done for that expense. So for example, you have an envelope that says, you write on entertainment, and that has $500 in it for the month. And once that $500 is gone, it's gone. No more entertainment for you. A little extreme. So, but the pros and cons, the pros are it's really good at accountability. You can't overspend unless you take more money out from other envelopes, of course. But it's great at holding you accountable. The cons are it's not always realistic sometimes. It requires a very, very high degree of discipline. For some folks, it works fantastic, and for others, it may not be the best strategy to go with. The next form of budgeting is called an 80-20 budget. And in this form, you essentially pay yourself first, with 20% going towards savings, and then allocating the remaining 80% towards expenses. So you essentially get paid, you immediately put 20% towards savings, and then the 80% is freely used towards expenses. The pros are it's very simple, it's very straightforward, it's a good starter budget, and it's really good for making folks save. So as Americans, we're pretty notorious for not saving as we should, so this essentially makes it so. It's very simple, it's very straightforward. It forces you to pay yourself first. The cons are it's not as granular on the expense side. It leaves a lot of freedom where folks might need to be a little bit more structured. So for me personally, I personally need a little bit more structure as opposed to having it, okay, you get your 80, spend it how you spend it. The next budget that we're going to look at is called the 50-30-20 budget. And this actually, it expands on the idea of the 80-20 budget where you break down your expenses into needs, wants, and then finally savings. So you get $1, 50% of that goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards wants, your guitar, and 20% goes towards savings. The pros and cons, the pros are it's a great way to allocate your funds and to be honest really about what is a need and what is a want. So for example, a Netflix is not a need. Paying off your mortgage is a need. And it also forces you to save, as I mentioned before. Americans are not that disciplined when it comes to saving, unfortunately. And the cons are folks may confuse the needs and wants. That happens all the time. I'm guilty of that too. And you need to be more detailed on the exact expenses in each category. So when you get into the needs and when you get into the wants, just be a little bit more structured and break it down within each of those categories. So those are the type of budgets that obviously those are the very high level. There's different forms out there. There's different variations that may work for you. Over the years, I've personally have gone through zero-based budget with clients, and I use that in conjunction with financial planning software, and it helps track spending habits. And that's my preference, but it may not be right for everybody. As with anything in financial planning, it's what works for you, what speaks to you, and that's going to lead you to be successful. So work with a professional, find someone who specializes in that. And again, budgeting may not sound like the most sexiest thing possible, but it's a strong foundation for you to start building on your financial house. Lay the foundation, build your walls and your roof. But having that strong budgeting and being disciplined is the way to go. Hopefully this helped. As always, I really enjoy putting out these videos. If you like it, go ahead and hit like, subscribe. We send out more. I try to do one once a week. Just had a baby, so we're going to keep trying to pump these out as much as possible. You may hear them in the background. And if this was good, I would appreciate a subscribe and even a share. And as always, be good to yourself, be good to others, take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.